Okay. Well, I think we could go ahead and start. So,
It's 5 after, so yes, thank you.
we've got a nice sized group tonight. I want to welcome everyone. At the end, if there's time, if people want to put in the chat box some different holiday things they've been doing, we'll call on you to talk about it for a minute or two. So, Chad Gilliland has graciously agreed to talk to us tonight about making hot honey and infused honeys, and he's been doing that for several years now. And then we'll finish up. You all have inspired me to make these awful beeswax wraps, and so I've made 18 sets and I have 20 more to do, so it's heating up on my stove right now. So anyway, so I'm going to give a little presentation on that, and then I think we'll have time at the end, um, if you all have been doing something and you have suggestions. So okay. Chad, Bob will walk you through what you need to do, I guess, or whatever. I'm going to mute
All
my.
right. Well, very good. Good evening, everyone. As Jolie had mentioned, my name is Chad Gilliland, and owner-operator of Next to Nature Farm. And I've been working with infused honeys now, my gosh, since about a year after I got into beekeeping. It was just something that was very interesting to change that dynamic, or not necessarily change, but add to the dynamic of the flavor of honey. So Jolie had asked me to talk about hot honey. And so when we just talk about, any type of flavor add to honeys, that goes through an infusion process where you take a dried product, a dry ingredient component that you would like to add to your liquid honey. And you can really, in this area, you can get really creative with your flavor creations. We look at, flavor creations using dried herbs, dried fruits, anything in a dried state. I do know that some people will utilize a liquid-based flavor add on honeys, but we work to stay away from the liquid base, because what we're wanting to do is ensure that we don't increase the moisture content of our honey. So in adding a dry component, a dry ingredient, we ensure that we don't change the uh, moisture content, thus potentially causing our honey to ferment if we had a 18% plus honey that we ended up adding a ingredient component that had a high moisture content to it. So in staying in that dried realm, we ensure that. But I also do believe that you get a more intensity, your more flavor intensity when you deal with dried products. So I've got a few here that what I'll do is I'll hold them up just to give you a little bit of an idea. So first and foremost with hot honeys, in-house, we do a jalapeno, a habanero, a ghost pepper, and a scorpion pepper honey. So you really get all the different levels of heat for that, customer or that family member that you're, either gifting or selling that product to. So with that low end of the jalapeno, a jalapeno, we look at drying those jalapenos down. And then what we'll do is we'll take multiple whole dried jalapenos, put them in a blender to blend them up really nice and fine. I first, when I got started, did it a little chunkier, but found that the more that you blend it, then when you go to screen the product after it has finished, then you get some of those little, small microns of pepper in the honey, which helps to improve the intensity of the flavor without making it look like you got all kinds of odd floaties in your product. So, so we'll take that and blend those ingredient components up, add them directly to the honey. And so a couple examples, I've got, some different peppers, to share. We've got, obviously we've got a dried jalapeno pepper. So, when we make batches, we do it by the gallon size. And when we do a gallon size, depending on the heat, we may put anywhere from 12 to 15 dried jalapenos in our individual batch. Now, some folks will look at making a pint or a quart at a time because, they're not into large batch production. But when we make one, we'll make 5 gallons of each one. I like to stay to the 1 gallon size container when I'm doing that infusion process, with whether I'm making hot honey or any other infused flavored honey. So, we'll also look at, habaneros. There's different other types of, chili peppers that you can add. So, one way is to dry down your own peppers in a dehydrator. Great way to keep your costs low, so that you're not purchasing peppers that then you have to dry down. You can grow your own and then dry them down, or you can purchase those same types of peppers at a farmer's market at a grocery store and do the same here. And I'm not going to I had already blended down all of our scorpion pepper, but this is a very small bag. It looks big in the picture, but this is a small bag of scorpion pepper. And with this here, you can utilize a lot less to get the intensity of the heat that you're wanting for your hot honey. So here we might use, a teaspoon to a tablespoon, depending on, what we're looking at with the intensity of heat for a gallon. So a little bit with those higher Scoville rating peppers go a long way. So you can test it and try it for yourself to see where your intensity on your flavor and your heat you want it to land. So and then you can also, this is a little bag of cayenne pepper. So if you're wanting something not super hot but yet still on that heat range that'll put more than a tingle on your tongue, there's lots of options for different peppers out there. And your hot peppers or your hot honeys are very popular. That's why we've expanded. We first started out with jalapeno, then added habanero, and then some of the other heats, because more of our customers said, I need more heat. I want more heat. I cook with honey. I want that last minute that meats are in the, in the smoker or on the grill or in the oven, that I can put that, scorpion pepper or that jalapeno or ghost pepper honey over the top and make, some nice hot ribs, spicy ribs, or, chicken. And you can make hot wings with a honey, hot honey. So a very creative way to utilize honey and give you a value added product above and beyond just your raw, unheated, unfiltered honey that you might gift or that you might sell. Some other things, some other options. We have dried spearmint. So here you can just go to Natural Grocers and you can buy any mint or any type of culinary herb to utilize in making an infused honey. In that infusion process, what you're wanting is you're wanting your dried product. You're wanting to have your container with your honey, and then you're wanting some type of heat source. This is and I'll hold it up here. This is a 1-gallon jar of habanero honey, and I can show you the lid here. We made that back on the end of October. So, for us, we let ours sit on our hot honeys anywhere from 45 to 60 days because we really want the flavor to be through every ounce of the honey and not just, oh, it's an afterthought. I want it to be a forefront, but yet not ruin the flavor of the honey. It accents the honey with an added flavor. We've got other options here. I've got a jar of jalapeno infused honey. And if I bring it in close, you can see all the dried jalapeno. Now it will float to the top. So every couple of days, we have to invert our jars and shake them up and agitate them so that we make sure to, keep that infusion flavor option, that ingredient component in suspension, but ultimately it's gonna rise to the top because it's lighter in weight and the viscosity of the honey. It just pulls it up and keeps it at the top. So we also have options with make herbal variety infused honeys. You can use rosemary, and then you can couple different things because we focus on the herbs because of the health benefits. We look at not just as a flavor benefit, but also as a health benefit. We don't promote and put that on the label, but what we do is educate the consumer about what the healthful benefits are of those raw ingredient components that we're intentionally adding to the honey to infuse it. Here we have chamomile flowers, so we'll take chamomile and rose hips and make a rose hips and chamomile, knowing that there's lots and lots of healthful benefits to those two components, and then adding that into honey with what all the natural healthful benefits that honey has. It's just a win-win for value-added products. We got spearmint leaf, and any place that you can buy small amounts or even bulk amounts of herbs is a good opportunity to get started. As I mentioned, Natural Grocers in Shawnee in Kansas City is where you can get some things. You can dry down all kinds of fruits. You can even dry down the fruit and use the peel, like orange peel, and utilizing that concept of orange zest and having like an orange zest and ginger, or even an orange zest and rosemary. You can play with the flavors to get an idea of, hey, what tastes good to me? Because immediately, if I think it tastes good, then it's a great combination that's something that you can take to market. You can either that or gift it to friends, or if you're in the business to sell and wanting to add value-added products to your line, then that's a great option. Another thing, garlic, minced garlic. We do a great infused garlic honey, and I'm going to pull that up here to show you. This is a gallon of infused minced garlic, and here each person that makes the product, it really is based on your flavor creation and how much garlic you want in the flavor of the honey. So I can't really say, hey, it's a third of a cup or a half of a cup. We'll start out with a cup of minced garlic to a gallon, but you know, it really just depends on, you know, the flavor profile of your honey. If you have a, you know, very light colored, very sweet clover honey, then it's going to be easy to catch the flavor creation immediately. But if you're using a wildflower darker blended honey, then what you're looking at there is using more of your ingredient component to increase your flavor profile to get to your final you know, resting place on the flavor in the honey that you're looking for. So you know, how we doing on time, Robert?
You're doing fine.
Okay, so you know what we look at with our infused flavored honeys, and I'm gonna change up here just a minute, just so I can take you back to another room and give you an idea what and how we keep our infused flavored honeys warmed. So what we have here is a modified hot box. So you can see that, you know, we have, you know, a large full-size glass door refrigerator. And, you know, it has probably right now about 20 to 30 1-gallon jars of honey that are going through that infusion process right now. So what that allows us is when we have a large heating component like that, then allows us to make enough at one time, because that product can sit, depending on, you know, your flavor intensity and even the amount you're making at one time. You know, gallon jars will take, you know, longer than if you're doing a pint or a quart at a time. So, you know, it really just depends. You know, another one here, and I forgot that I had brought this one out. Here we have cinnamon infused honey. So you can take, you know, 25 to 30 cinnamon sticks to a 1-gallon jar and have a great cinnamon flavored infused honey. And that's always a good seller. So, you know, you can get creative, try all different, you know, types of ingredient components. Remember to stay dry. I do know some folks that have, you know, dabbled with, you know, liquid-based products, but it's just something I don't feel comfortable doing, because I want to ensure that I never exceed my threshold on my moisture content on the honey. And also, we want to stay all natural. And when you use a liquid base flavor creation for something, many times there's another ingredient component added, either to keep that you know, initial product, that initial flavor option safe, you know, like a preservative, or, you know, something to you know, keep it you know, keep it in a form that can stay on a store shelf for an extended period of time. So when you use a liquid base, sometimes you're not always getting the raw component. So for us, hence our name, Next to Nature Farm, we want to keep everything as natural as we, you know, physically and as we possibly can. Are there any questions about hot honey, infused honeys, the process? You know, we like to keep our hot box, I didn't mention this, somewhere around 90 to 95 degrees. That's optimum. You can definitely do it at a lower temperature. It may just take longer. Some people will do a cold suspension where they keep it at room temperature. That takes longer. We find to get the intensity and the full flavor of the ingredient component, keeping it around 90 degrees gets that process complete without harming the beneficial enzymes and bacteria in raw honey. So we're keeping it at a temperature that is consistent with keeping the integrity of our raw honey.
So Chad, some of the questions are, you mentioned straining. How do you strain it, and then how do you get it from the gallon jar into your bottles?
Okay, so when we strain it, all we're using are different types of mesh. It depends on your ingredient component. So if I'm using, let's say, dried and blended jalapeno peppers for hot honey, I use a fairly medium-sized mesh. I don't use really small because I want small microns of that dusted pepper to go into the batch that's going to get bottled. We get a better flavor profile, and if we put on, if we educate our consumer that what you're seeing in there are just very small microns of, you'll see the red jalapeno minute pieces. They appreciate that because, again, that flavor intensity improves. And especially if you're using hot honeys in cooking and baking and using them as last minute glazes on meats, having those little bits of peppers are really popular. But again, it's very small. It can be a simple colander for cinnamon sticks because you're just pouring your product out of the initial container that you're doing your infusion process in, into your final bottling system. I just use a 5-gallon bucket with a honey gate, and then put different size metal mesh strainers over the top. I don't like using plastic anytime I'm working with infused honeys when I'm storing them for extended periods of time, because we know what happens when you store things extended periods of time with temperatures like up in the 90s. We don't know the quality of the plastic, so you don't want anything to leach from the container into your honey. So we always use glass jars for the infusion process. And the only time that plastic comes in contact is when the honey's cooled and it's put into the 5-gallon bottling bucket and into the final resting container that goes to the consumer. So we always cool our honeys down before we bottle them. We don't completely cool them, but we get them down to that 75, 80 degrees so it pours easy and strains nicely, but isn't so thick that it takes time to bottle as many gallons that we might produce at a time.
So when you're using the powder, do you strain it, or you just like mix that in?
There we use a very fine screen, but we want, depending on the powder. Now, when we say powder, what we're talking about is, we're not talking about like a powdered cinnamon. We're talking about a pepper that has been blended in a blender to be very small particulates, maybe almost powder, but when you send it through a very small screen strainer, it's going to catch 85 to 90% of the particulate and allow a little bit through, is what we want for the add to the flavor profile. But if it's anything of any size, we don't want that because it doesn't look as appetizing to the consumer when they've got big floaties. But if it's small things like almost like just a speck of pepper, we see that our customers appreciate that because it adds to the flavor profile when they're using the product.
Another question is, I notice a lot of hot honeys have vinegar added. Is that the preservative you referenced?
We never use vinegar because, again, that's going to act as a change potentially to our flavor profile. Plus, that's a liquid base that we're adding to our honey. And if you're making it in a small enough batch, that could potentially change um, the your moisture content of the honey. I've never heard of using vinegar, but I would guess that potentially a product that ends up on the shelf at a big box store, they may use some type of additive, but I don't see that it would be utilized as a preservative, because anything in a dry form, once it's in honey, is truly preserved, because the pH of the honey itself, as long as the product is dry, will preserve whatever you add to the honey, as long as it has no moisture content. In my experiences and in my research, so I couldn't answer about the use of vinegar. I would have to look into that to be able to educate myself of why that might have been utilized in the first place.
Is an infused honey shelf stable, or does it need to be refrigerated? But I think you kind of just answered that.
Yeah, so there's no need to refrigerate a honey product. Again, because once you add a dry ingredient to a jar of honey, that jar of honey is acting as as the stable environment, because there's no added moisture. Nothing can go bad, nothing can spoil, nothing can mold. Putting it in the refrigerator obviously would increase your crystallization process and move it along potentially faster than it was if it was stored on the countertop at room temperature. But you shouldn't have to refrigerate. If you do come across a product from a big box store, or from someone that may make that product, and they put must be refrigerated after opening, I would be leery about the potential ingredient components in that product, because if you have to refrigerate it, then what you're saying is there's something there that could spoil potentially, and you're reducing the risk to the producer by putting that that caution statement on the label.
And then another question is, how do you seal the jars?
So when we're doing the infusion process, we just put a standard solid lid on the jar. So like this gallon jar, it's got a standard metal lid that we put on, and we keep that closed for the entire process. If we need to, get some form of agitation to move the dried product around to mix it up, we'll roll it, we'll agitate it, but we will keep it closed. And that's just our process. I know some people will, put something in and mix it up, but in doing that, it's just another thing I have to clean up. So if I don't want to have to clean up my mixing spoon, and we just will rotate these, roll them, or shake them for agitation. But other than that, I always put lids on, because what I don't want is I don't want another contaminant, or I don't want dust flying through the air in your food space, the area that you're producing your product in. I want to make sure that I don't get any gnats or any type of flying insects or crawling insects in a product. So we always keep everything sealed, even if it's going into the hot box or the warming box.
One question is, if you want a stronger flavor, can you add more dry ingredients and extend the process time, or do you have to start over with a new jar?
Absolutely, you can add more product, add more ingredient after your initial time frame in which you had that infused honey resting in your warming device. I've even seen a gallon glass jar like this we make kombucha in glass jars. They have these bands that you can put a nylon band on here that has a little warming device, and you can keep them, you know, if you wrap a towel around them, also at 75, 80, 85 degrees. So, you know, having something to warm it is going to improve and you know, facilitate the, you know, getting that flavor profile completely through your honey. And you don't need to start over with a new batch. If you're not happy with the flavor intensity, then just add a little bit more and keep going. There's no reason, because again, stable shelf life on honey is, you know, as long as it's under that 18.6% moisture content, is not going to go bad. So it's not going to ferment. So if anything, you're just going to have a better profile, a more intense flavor to the honey. We have some infused honeys that we do for 90 days, you know, so there are some varieties. A good example, elderberry honey. We do that for 90 days. You know, it might be finished at 60, maybe 75, but we make enough batches at a time that we can spread it out. And, you know, when we need to take one out, we look at the dates. Is it ready to bottle? Then it's good to go. But to get the flavor profile and to get also the healthful benefits of whatever you're infusing into the honey, the longer that it sits, the more benefit that you'll see potentially with you know, with what you're looking to improve with either the flavor profile or the healthful benefits of infused honey.
So do you have to have an inspected commercial kitchen to infuse and sell?
It is to infuse and sell, in my experiences, yes, especially hot honeys. Anytime you add pepper to any type of food-based product, peppers and tomato-based products have the highest risk factor with the potential of botulism. Now, dried peppers decreases that percentage exponentially, but there is still a slim chance, but very, very slim. It's when it has a moisture content to the ingredient component is when you have that concern come up. That's why with the value-added food labs at K-State, I know some ladies that make a powdered pepper jalapeno jelly. And if they use powdered peppers, it doesn't have to be inspected. But if they use blended, wet, moisture content, whole jalapenos that they blended down in a food processor, then it has to be inspected. So go figure. Even the K-State you know, value-added foods lab realizes and notices that the dry component in pepper has a severely reduced risk factor. But it's smart to do it in a commercial kitchen. We've always done that because we have one at our own disposal here at the farm. But again, that's only if you're looking to sell the product. If you're just looking to make it as a gift and as a, you know, an option to give to friends and family, then, you know, there's no need for taking that added cost onto that when you're gifting the product.
Chad has a beautiful kitchen, one to be jealous of, so it's really nice. Have you ever made vanilla infused honey? That's my all-time favorite.
Yes, so we use whole vanilla beans that we cut in half, and we scrape the meat out with a flat edge, put that into the honey, making sure that it's blended up good so that all those small microns of vanilla bean meat infused throughout the honey. And then we'll drop the pods in afterwards as just an additional, you know, flavor benefit. what we do see with vanilla bean honey is that's one that um, it for us it takes a full 30 days to get the flavor profile, but the longer we keep it in, if we keep it in 40 to 45 days, the flavor intensifies. And yeah, definitely.
One more question. Do you dehydrate fruit to add to honey and grind or use whole?
Um, with with fruit, using dried fruit is obviously the best way to go because your moisture content is greatly reduced, and then we'll either grind it up or chop it up, depending on the type of fruit. We see that you have to be careful when you're using anything in the citrus family of not grinding it too much because it'll dust it up. When it's a dried grapefruit or a dried orange or dried lemon. So there we tend to chop that up by hand versus putting it in a food processor or blender, only because we don't want to dust it up too much because you're not just getting there the dried fruit, the dried ovary of the fruit. You might also be getting, the dried skin. Now the dried skin a lot of times is where the flavor's at with the lemon zest or with orange zest of chopping up that peel, but we don't blend it and pulverize it too heavy.
Very good. And where do you get your gallon jars and lids that you use?
Okay, you can buy them, but right now they're about $6 a piece. You can go to there's different companies that sell. We have a contract with Arkansas Glass Company, but we don't even buy them anymore. What I do is I go to restaurants locally that have salad bars, and they buy green olives, black olives, and all kinds of vegetables that have already been preserved, and they are preserved and sold in 1-gallon glass jars. And they're more than happy to wash them out and keep them for me and call me at the end of the week and say, hey, they're ready to be picked up, because they'd rather do that than see them just go in the trash. So if you can recycle, reuse, restaurants are more than happy to do that. You just build a rapport with the owner and then take them some of that product once it's finished. And that even sweetens the deal, no pun intended, for them. Getting a bottle of infused honey is a great exchange for something that they were going to throw away in the trash anyway. But we'll disinfect them and clean them really good and reuse them as the storage component. Now, we won't sell the product in them because selling infused honey in a gallon size is pretty expensive. And we do have one food-based business that does buy one of our infused honeys because they make macaroons and they use the infused flavored honey as one of their macaroon flavors that is very popular with their customers. So, again, because it's a value-added product that has extra ingredients on top of the honey, and the time spent in making it, you should be charging a premium. So if you sell a 12-ounce bottle of honey for, and I'm just throwing a number out there, let's say $7, then you should have a value-added benefit to your infused honey in that same container size for $3, $4, maybe even $5 more, depending on the ingredient components that you utilize. Some ingredient components are more expensive than others. Vanilla bean honey, you buy 2 vanilla bean pods from a bulk store, or even their standard grocery store. They're up to $18, $20 for a pack of 2, and that is what we use in a gallon of honey. We actually use about 4. So if you're using 4 vanilla beans and you've got $36 to $40 in your vanilla bean, and you've got a gallon jar, then you divide out how many ounces. You got 128 ounces of honey. If you're putting them in a 12-ounce bottle, then you're going to get X number of final bottles. So you take the value of your honey plus the value of your ingredient components, and then if you feel that your labor is worth something, then you put a value to your labor, because if you're using a warming device, you've got electrical costs, utility costs. So don't underestimate the value of infused honey and what it brings as a value added benefit to the consumer.
Well, very good, Chad. This was great. That's awesome. This is awesome. So you have really done a great job. You guys, Chad has done a wonderful job with agritourism out of this place. He has a butterfly house and a lot of pollinator plants, and he's really got a wonderful educational opportunity out there. If you're in Tonganoxie, you might try and go out there. So a
Yep,
lot of
and
great information. Thank you. So anyway, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and I must admit, first and foremost, yourself and Cecil were two of my mentors early on. So you planted a seed in us that has bloomed and blossomed, and we thank you for all that you do in mentoring others. You guys are so open and forthright with your time and with your knowledge that it doesn't go unnoticed. We thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Yes, Chad was one of my proteges, I'll have to say, so that was good. So thank you, Chad, and thanks for stepping in at the last minute. I really appreciate it. So
thank you, Joli.
So lots of thank yous in the chat box. So all right. All right, so I'm gonna do what am I doing? Making beeswax wraps. So I'm going to share my screen. Share, and then okay, so I don't have a whole lot of pictures here, and a few of these I stole from someone else's website, and I don't know who. It might be someone on here, I don't know. So my emails have not been working. Plus, when I was making these, I had so much goo on my hand, I didn't really want to touch my phone to take pictures. So anyway, so I made these 2 years ago, and then I didn't make any last year. And I want to say, out of all of the things that I do, soap making, lotions, lip balms, these are the most time consuming of anything, I think. So so I'll get started. Feel free to ask questions. So I started with an article in the American Bee Journal that Rusty Burlew did. It was March 2020, and it was just called How to Make Food Wraps. If you can't find the article, if you email me or text me and give me your email, I'll send it to you. I don't know if Bob could post it on the website, or I could actually have my sister post it on mine under recipes. So it's just heartlandhoney.com. So if you want to get that, and it's kind of how I did it. It's kind of like everything. You read something, you do it once that way, and then you kind of change it a little bit to what works for you. And so that's kind of what I've done with this article that she sent, but we all kind of do that with everything we do. So the first thing you have to do is prepare the fabric. And I am a bee fabric nut. I joined a quilting guild thinking I would quilt, but I am not a quilter. So I just buy fabric. I wrap all my soaps in fabric with honeybees on it. My tablecloths at market are I just always use bee fabric in everything. So I had lots of fabric around. I have too much fabric around. So unfortunately, this doesn't really use up enough. So yesterday or day before yesterday, I picked out some fabrics. When I wrap my soaps, I don't like to use white fabric, and I did have some white fabrics or some lighter colored fabrics. And so I just picked some, either they didn't have prominent bees on them or something. So I just cut the fabric. So I had some of these quilting gadgets to use to cut the fabric. You can kind of see I have one of those green rubber mats underneath. In the article, she suggests 3 sizes, and she kind of gave a range. 2 years ago, I decided I was going to do a 8x8, an 11x11, and a 14x14. The only problem is the cookie sheet I started using, the 14x14, is kind of too small. Though I have bigger cookie sheets that we cut our comb honey on, I wasn't willing to take one of those. So anyway, so you get the fabric, you cut it to whatever size you want. And so this was just how I did it. These are pinking shears. These are the only pinking shears I own that have handles on them, because Remy tends to chew them up. So I cut all these fabrics. So there's like my 3 different sizes. And actually, I think those are pretty good sizes. That little one will go over kind of a small bowl, you know, kind of a medium bowl and a large bowl. So I kind of like those. And then what you have to do is you have to wash it, and you can do it by hand in in your sink with just a little soap and water. And then you have to hang them out to dry, and then you have to iron them. And those of you who know me know I am totally allergic to ironing. It's really against my religion, but I wash these in the I wash them in the washing machine I have like an express cycle. And so, I mean, I really cut a stack of fabric. I really had a lot done. So, and then, so I washed it, rinsed it, dried it, and then I ironed yesterday for like 2 hours. And there were all these strings. I mean, I think if I had to do it over, like I had used like that roller blade, that's not what it's called, but that's, the roller thing. And so I had all these strings as I was ironing. I tried to trim them, and they just really kind of made me crazy. So that was not pleasant. So the recipe that she gives in this article is, and I got like 2 sets of 3 out. So I got 6 sheets out of one recipe, really more like 3 sets, I'd say. It's 3.5 ounces of clean beeswax. If you don't have much beeswax, you could use the beads. These are beeswax beads. Or Cecil's been, he's been making candles all week, so our house smells wonderful. So he's been making these little beeswax cups, and there were about 3.5 ounces, which was perfect. So, and then you need 0.7 ounces of rosin. So there's also resin, and you have to make sure and get the right one, or it won't work. And I bought a pulverized one, and it's just a little powder. And then the other thing you need is a tablespoon of jojoba oil. I use a lot of jojoba oil in my products. I've also seen, and she suggests in her article, that you could use coconut oil or something like that. The first time I made these, I only used beeswax, and they were too cracky. They wouldn't form around a bowl. It just didn't work with just beeswax. And so I'd only made a few that we kind of tried, and I never even tried to sell those. And then I looked online and saw some of these recipes, and they pretty much all called for rosin and jojoba oil. And the jojoba oil is not cheap, but I think it works really good. So, and you can see that little blue cup right there is the pulverized rosin. It's just kind of little. Okay. You also need some dedicated equipment. The first thing you need to do is go in and change clothes and put on old clothes and old shoes because you think you're not going to get it on you, but we all know better. You need an old kettle that you're going to kind of make into a double boiler, or you could, find a double boiler and use one. I just use a jar, a stir, the stir's just a chopstick that works pretty good, a paintbrush, a foil lined cookie sheet. And so I had this foil lined cookie sheet, and so I took the foil off yesterday to change the foil, and all the stuff had leaked underneath. So I don't know that you need to put foil under it, but it also suggested you could use parchment, but you're going to get this goo on your cookie sheet. So either dedicate one, or I'm sure it can be cleaned up. I also wish I could find a little pair of tongs, like those little wooden tongs or some metal tongs, but because I'll tell you later on when I think that would have been nice. And then later in the evening yesterday, I thought, well, I've got a box of gloves here. Why don't I put them on? So I put some gloves on, and that was a lot better. Though it was easy to get my hands cleaned off using alcohol. So, and then here on the right is kind of my double boiler. It's just an old pan with a jar in it and my stuff in it melting with water around it because you don't want your jar to explode. So you just want to heat the mixture and stir it real good. And then you're going to lay your fabric down on your cookie sheet. And Rusty, in her article, she suggests that you just pour it, like take your jar and pour like a figure-8 on it and then leave it, and it kind of spreads out. And that is true. But I really liked using the paintbrush better. And I kind of painted it on, and it cools really quickly with, all that beeswax in it. But I was able to get my edges done really good. And then I just like the paintbrush method. And I want to say 2 years ago that I did just kind of dump it on. But then it was like when you took it out of the oven, you were brushing it a whole lot pretty quickly. And so I kind of eliminated that step because it was pretty well saturated. So after I get it coated, and here you can kind of see this is the same fabric. So once I brush the mixture on, this brownish one down on the bottom has the mixture on it, and I'm still putting it on the one on top. And I do find that you can kind of overlap them a little bit. And because there's so much stuff on your pan when you put it in the oven, that when it heats, it really soaks the back of your fabric and soaks it in really good. So it's not an issue if your fabric doesn't fit on really, really well. So, and then when you take your fabric off, there's all this stuff on the cookie sheet. And so sticking it in a 200-degree oven is really important for that whole saturation, the whole saturation thing. So I think it's, a real important step. So I preheated my oven to 200, and then I put my foil lined pan in for, I don't know, about 3 minutes. I've been listening to Pandora, so it's for each song. By the time one song is over, that seems to be enough time. And so you want to remember those famous words that Cecil and I say of never say I'll be right back. So I put this in the oven, and then I went and put it on like 20 Facebooks last night, and then remembered that, oh yeah, I have something in the oven. And so this fabric faded, like those red cherries faded off. And so it hadn't done that. I'd done a whole bunch others. So the ones that I had just done, for 2 or 3 minutes in the oven, they were just fine. So I just kind of trashed this and redid another big one. But yeah, when you're working with beeswax and you put something in the oven, it's not very bright to walk away. So anyway. So this is a picture I took. So her directions were to take it out of the oven and wave it. And honest to God, that works. So, and I couldn't get a picture of me waving it and take a picture at the same time. So this lady suggested that you use a hanger and clothespins, but honest to God, by the time you would get it hung up on there, it's dry. It's cool enough that it's already firm and it's not going to get on anything. So you just kind of wave it around, like not even for a minute, like for 30 seconds, and then it's firmed up. Because when you take it off the cookie sheet, it's pretty like liquidy, but then with the beeswax and the rosin, it just firms right up, and they're pretty not solid, but pliable, I guess would be a better word to use. So then it made me crazy because there's all these threads still on there that I thought I'd gotten. And so I tried to cut some of them off while they were still in that pliable stage, and that didn't work very well. So I think as I package them, I might trim some more of those up. So these were some of my finished products. I kind of did some sets with the same the same fabrics, and then I did some sets. Honest, I just kind of cut up what I had, and I've just kind of mixed and matched these sets. So far I've got 18 finished, and I have enough to do about another 18. I'm going to finish them up when we're done here tonight. So you can kind of see the red handle of the scissors right there. That has no handle because Remy has eaten them. So that's what I'm saying. So packaging, I don't know. This is how I packaged them. So I had some quart plastic baggies, and the one on the right is in a gallon plastic baggie. I hate to use plastic for a product that is like an eco product, I guess, that's kind of how we think of these. But I thought about just rolling them, but beeswax just attracts dirt so easily, and we schlep them in and out of the car. And I'm still doing an outdoor market, and so it's windy, they're going to get dirty. So I don't know what people's thoughts are. Maybe you have some thoughts on how to package them. I thought about wrapping them in a piece of cloth, but I wasn't going to cut any more cloth up. So I don't know. I think this way people can kind of see the designs. Cecil and I can't remember what we charged 2 years ago, but I think I charged $15 a piece for these 3. Is that enough? I don't know. I kind of can't decide what I'm going to do, but I kind of need to decide by Saturday. So on my label, I put the 3 sizes that are in there. I put the ingredients of beeswax, rosin, and jojoba oil. And then last night I made a new label and I added the care instructions. So people are just supposed to wash it in warm soapy water. They can't put it in the dishwasher. They can't wash it in hot water. So anyway, and then I put my contact information on it. But so I don't know, have any of you made those? I mean, I've seen them like one sheet for as much as $20. I don't feel comfortable doing that. But honestly, this is quilt fabric, and quilt fabric now is like $12 for a yard. And I didn't really measure how many I got out of a yard, but I probably just got 6 pieces of fabric out of it. So I don't, I probably got 2.5 sets out of a yard. So, in one set, I've got, $4 or $5 in, in it. So, um, I don't know. Chad, I see you're on there. Have you made them or? Yeah, Brad, you wanted to say something?
Joli, I've enjoyed your presentation. They look interesting. Can I ask a really simple question? How does a person use them? I didn't.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's my next slide. Well,
Oh, thank
maybe it
you.
was my first one. So, oh, where is my picture? Oh, I had a picture of on a jar, well, maybe I didn't put it on. Let me go back. I swear it was on my cover sheet. Oh, there. So you put it on a jar and the warmth of your hands forms it to a bowl. And so you're not going to be using foil, which, I use to cover my thing. You're not going to be using foil or saran wrap. You're going to use these.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I was kind of ignorant.
Yeah. So that's the whole point. So, and you could like put them, like if you did some infused honeys, they're a good way to decorate a jar. Or, Robert, you could decorate your elderberry jelly that you're going to give me. You could decorate it with one of them.
Thanks, Joli.
Yeah.
Joli,
Joli, I was just going to mention, we haven't made these, but they are super popular. They're really picking up a lot of momentum, out on the market. People use them to, like you say, cover jars, bowls, containers that they would use saran wrap or aluminum foil with, because this, concept of recycle, reuse, and you can use them quite a few times over and over again. I know some people make them where you can wrap a sandwich in them, and they have sandwich wraps now. So they're really gaining a lot of momentum with people that want to be more environmentally conscious.
Yeah, I agree. They are very popular and people are willing to pay for them. I don't know. I mean, people ask me for them all the time. I should have done it a long time ago. But honest to God, they are really time consuming. I mean, if you're just making a few for yourself, but I've spent like parts of 3 days, and I mean, I haven't like detailed how much time, but this was not a little project. So,
Joli, this is Joe Patrick.
mhm.
I've made these and I followed Rusty Burlow's recipe as well. And I used the paintbrush method. I had trouble with, unevenness getting the melted wax mixture evenly spread. The way she described it in the article, it was like it'll be great. It'll soak in and it'll spread out and all this. And no, I kept finding myself going back repeatedly and finding spots that were a little on the bare side and touching up. So I'm not sure what I did, but.
Well, the first time I made them way too thick. I mean, there's kind of a balance between too much and not enough. And I did notice just on one of mine that I took off that I had some bare spots, and I put it back on and, put some more stuff on it. But it seems like I've got enough underneath on the foil that I felt like today that once I got going and I got a system going, that I was getting them pretty well saturated, but not so saturated they wouldn't bend around a bowl or something. But so I don't know. I'm like you. It just took me time to kind of get my groove going, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I agree with you on that. If you're doing set after set, you get a groove going and it goes along pretty quick when you're at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I did all my fabric first and then I've kind of done it in steps. So I think that helped. But yeah, yeah, like she said, just pour it on and it'll kind of spread out. But I just didn't find that. So I just kind of brushed it. And you can kind of tell the difference on, you know, when you put it on, I'm doing it right on my stove. So I have a pretty good light, you know, right above where I can see pretty good, though I've used a couple darker fabrics and it's really harder to see it on those. So that might help too, is what color your fabric is kind of. So
Jolie,
mhm.
couple things. Jackie Campbell suggested a use as sandwich covers.
Mhm.
C. Blair says that they wrap their cheese in them. Matilda has a question. Can you wash, dry, and iron a full piece of the material and then cut it? Or because you're going to need to trim the strings either way.
You know, that might have worked pretty well, but yeah, I think you still would have strings no matter what. And honest, if I was just doing a few, I think I would use a ruler, mark them and then cut them with pinking shears rather than using the roller that I used. I don't think my hands would have held up if I tried to use pinking shears on everything, but pinking shears are our friends, I think so. And I think I could get one of those cutting rollers that'll pink on the ends, and I think that would be a good thing to do too. But yeah, but the little strings are making me nuts. So anyway.
And then Susie Dutton is asking, do you need to use 100% cotton?
Yes, good point. You do need to use 100% cotton. And I've got a bunch of fabric that's kind of got that seersucker. So I think it's not 100% cotton. So I would like to have used that, but I couldn't find where it said on there that it was 100% cotton. But yes, you do need to use 100% cotton. That's good. And I will say, like these white ones, this was kind of a thin fabric. I don't think it was like a true quilting fabric that was really good fabric. I probably got it at Hobby Lobby or something. But some of my other fabrics had a nice weight to them, and honestly, those have come out a whole lot better. So I think skimping on the fabric probably isn't a really good idea, I guess. So.
So that's all that was in the chat. So
Okay, so how much did I sell them for?
20.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, actually. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say with the amount of time that it takes to, make them, plus beeswax is not a cheap, item. I think that many times beekeepers undervalue the value of beeswax, and with the amount of time it takes, and like you say, fabric, all ingredient components, all hard goods have gone up in price, exponentially over the last, few months to a year plus. That you definitely want to, earn a profit that
Back to 15, don't contribute.
Everything you have into it.
Back to 15, don't contribute.
I thought the rosin
Inflation.
was expensive.
What's that?
Yeah.
I thought the rosin was expensive. I
You
got that.
know, I bought it 2 years ago and I couldn't remember how much it was.
I bought mine off of Amazon, I believe, because it was.
Hmm.
I thought it was. I don't. I don't quite remember either, but I thought it was expensive.
Yeah. James and Melanie are saying 25 due to the time involved.
So I'm pretty sure both of our markets, I wouldn't get much pushback if I did 20. I don't know about 25, but sometimes that's just me. Would I pay 25? No. Would I pay 20? No. But so I don't know. But anyway. But I mean, I've seen it like packaged in cardboard. I'm not doing that. But I just kind of felt like what I did was just kind of clean looking and people could still see the fabric, but um I don't know.
Yeah,
Any suggestions on that? Yeah.
I would say definitely don't undervalue. And when you said, I had to chuckle when you said that, would I pay 25? No. Would I pay 20? No. I'm the same way. I squeak when I walk. I'm tight, but I always have to get over that hurdle of, would I pay that for it? Well, I can't go by that because the consumer is the one that, is purchasing, not my tight rear end. So,
Right.
when people know a product, when they're educated about it and what the value of how it can be reused time over, and time over, then the value added benefit, warrants a higher price. And if you don't sell any at 25, for towards the end of this season, then you start off, new farmers market season at 20. If you feel like, you had pushback and people kind of shook their head and said, that might be a little much. But
Mhm.
I tend not to change my prices too much. And, because in the end, if you educate the consumer about what it is, they're going to buy it.
But
Could you
Brad,
make,
that's a good idea. I'll have to take a bowl. Cecil and I'll take a bowl to our markets on Saturday so we can show them what it is. Because just because we know what it is doesn't mean everybody knows what it is. So, yeah.
could you maybe wrap them in like a waxed paper? It wouldn't be completely see-through, but it would protect your wraps and they could kind of see what your pattern was.
Yeah, because I kind of thought about rolling them or something
Right.
that would be a nice way for me to display it. So I could kind of wrap them in wax paper and then still have one out for people to see what they were getting or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I kind of like that better than the plastic actually.
That way you would be more environmentally friendly.
And I could tie them with a little piece of bee fabric or something.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So any other questions about this? So does anyone have anything they would like to share? Maybe you're making some holiday items that you would like to share what you've been up to.
Besides elderberry jelly.
Yeah. So Chad, on your elderberry infused honey, then are you using dried elderberries?
Yes. Yeah. We dehydrate the elderberries down. We planted 150 elderberries last year. And then we hope to get our first crop off of them this coming year because we planted them as bare root, as cuttings that we did. So we in the past have purchased elderberries and then dehydrated them down. Or I have a friend that has a commercial size dehydrator, and he's kind enough that if I send him the ingredients, he'll dehydrate it down and package it up for me.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, I yeah, I always use the dried product. And I find you can't freeze dried doesn't work in this instance. You gotta use dehydrated. You can use freeze dried, products in creamed honey, but just doesn't turn to infused honey because it cakes, it doesn't infiltrate into the honey as good as flecks or flakes when it's too powdered. You got to be careful. And so when I use freeze dried on my creamed honeys, I definitely don't try a crossover into the infused honey realm with those.
Good points.
Joli, you have all those strings you're worried about. Use them to tie around the wax paper.
Yeah. Put
That
them
would
out
be
for the birds
monotonous.
to make nests in the spring. Yeah. And usually stuff like that doesn't make me crazy, but if I'm going to charge someone $20 or $25 for something, it probably shouldn't have strings hanging.
Sandra Cohn says that Amazon has a set of 3 for $18. Jackie Campbell's giving some more ideas: infused garlic honey, garlic red chili flake honey, pesto, zucchini jerky with honey, zucchini bites, stuffed potato balls, and infused cocoa honey. And then Bob says the wife says to wash your fabric first, then cut with rotary cutter, and you won't have as many strings.
A rotary cutter is what I used. That was the name I couldn't think of, but that is what I used. And after I washed them, then I just had strings everywhere. So.
And Matilda's asking, would parchment paper work and use your label to seal?
Yeah, I could use parchment paper or the wax paper. Either one of those would work, I think would work really nicely, actually. So. Anything else? The committee's going to get together in the next, right after Thanksgiving, and we'll map out some of the future programs. I'm not sure what we're going to do in December. So you guys gave me some great suggestions. I got a lot of texts and emails. So we have a lot of things. We probably have another year's worth if you guys are interested. So anyway, I appreciate this. And if you have something you would like to give a presentation on, by all means, let me know. So, and I think my email contact information is in the information that you get on how to sign up for the programs here. So anyway, well, Chad, I really want to thank you again, and everyone who stayed on the talk. Had a nice group.
No problem. Thank you, Joli and Robert, for facilitating. Always great to gain more knowledge and figure out what you can add and what you can and how you can make your honey work for you, and come up with new products and new ideas. So
Yes, it's been a great exchange of information, I think. And I apologize, the person who was going to do the caramels and stuff wasn't able to come tonight. Something came up, so we might, I was thinking we ought to do the holiday stuff tonight so that people would have time to do it. So, so watch for us next month. We'll see what we're going to do. So anyway, so thank you all. I guess we're about done.